Hey guys, welcome back to Dark Souls 2. My name is Tom, and last episode we defeated the Rotten down in the Black Gulch. So this episode we're going to be moving on to the Shaded Woods and Brightstone Cove. Now, this episode should have been out, I think, about 3 days ago, or probably more than that, because... Well, that's just how I intended to start releasing videos again since I was sick. I was trying to get them out more fluently and more rapidly, but it turns out that the clips that I had gotten for the Shaded Woods had become corrupt. Now, the video still worked for them, but the audio, the game audio, was cut off about halfway through the episode. So those clips were basically unusable because they had no game audio, and therefore the dialogue that I got from every NPC in the Shaded Woods was cut out. So what I've got here is a new character, and I'm having to go through the Shaded Woods again to get the information that I missed. Sadly though, Creighton will not be in the Shaded Woods because I didn't do his questline on this character, and that was mainly just to save time. Because if I would have gone through getting his character dialogue all the way again through his questline, this character save file would have taken me another 10 or so hours to get through, because I would have to go through the Earthen Peak, I would have to go through the Hunter's Copse, and I would have to go through every location where Creighton is, and I would have to get all his dialogue and meet him in all those locations just to get him to appear in the Shaded Woods here. And to me, that didn't seem worth it. So what I'm going to do when we get up to where Creighton is just read out the dialogue that he says from the wiki, rather than intercutting footage from the last run-through of the Shaded Woods that I did. And that's purely just to save time. And just quickly, before I continue talking about this, I did buy this new ring called the Ring of Whispers. This ring allows me to talk to enemies or NPCs that can't usually be talked to without the ring. I'll be using this ring to talk to an NPC called Man Scorpion Tark a bit later on in the Shaded Woods. This ring is completely necessary to be able to talk to him. But as I was saying, I played this character for about 5 hours or so, maybe a little less, to get up to the Shaded Woods again. And I made this character only to do the Shaded Woods, just because that was the footage that I lost. So, in the character file that I was playing on before, where the footage got corrupted, I got up to the settlement camp at Brightstone Cove. So, as soon as I get up to that location on this character, I will be swapping back over to the previous character file, and we'll continue from there. And hopefully no more footage gets corrupted, because that would be a real bummer to have to miss out on dialogue again. And that just means episodes get released even slower, because I have to go through on another character and get that dialogue once more. There's probably always going to be mishaps and things that go wrong when you record a Let's Play like this, especially when you're recording for hours on end and you're just having to go on good faith that your recordings will work in the end. For instance, in the Bloodborne playthrough that I did with the live commentary, my PVR kept messing up almost every episode during that playthrough, and I had to be constantly changing settings and constantly checking my recordings every single minute, because, well, not every single minute, but every so often, maybe every 10 minutes or so, and I had to check on the PVR and turn around and then edit those clips so it didn't seem like I was doing that when I was actually making the episodes. So, there's so much that goes on behind these episodes that is, for one, hard to explain, and two, very, very time consuming. Now, here I'm just showing you my stats for this character so you can see what I'm working with on this build, and it's basically the same thing that I was going with before. And if I be quiet here for a second, you can hear that the hollows above in the next area are actually eating. So if I just go up slowly, you can start to see what they're doing, and you can start to see that they're not actually just hollows, they're like zombie hollows, and they're eating corpses and people and whatever is in the immediate area, and that's the reason the sacks on their stomachs are so big. I like that they actually put a reason for these hollows having those giant stomachs in this version of the game, because before you didn't really know why they were like that. You only could assume, but now that we can see that they're eating corpses and eating a lot of things, and they're like ravenous creatures that just devour everything that they can, it makes a lot more sense for them to have those giant sacks for stomachs. So the lore behind those enemies is, well, they're not explained really in the game, but it's nice that they're giving us these environmental clues on what they are and how they turned out this way. If you search the Shaded Woods lore on the internet, you will get a page that gives you some bit of information about these monsters, and they call them goblins, but I don't think they're goblins because they're never referenced as such. I think they're just hollows that are, for some reason, ravenous, and it says that they didn't come about through normal evolution, and they must have been twisted by some force to being into what they are now. But I don't really know if that's the case. I mean, they are near Aldia's keep, and as we know, Aldia experimented on undeads, so it would make sense if these enemies and those monsters back there with the giant stomachs were actually experiments of Aldia. And I think that's the best takeaway from the environmental lore and their actions that are given to us in this game. And we have the Forlorn again, but on this character, it was the first time I'd encountered him, so I don't know if he appeared in the Shaded Woods for me on my other character file that got corrupted, but I can only assume that he did. I just can't remember. As for the overall lore on the Shaded Woods, this page actually does have a bit of lore on it, which I'm surprised by, because it takes quite a little bit of finding and exploration to actually piece together the lore on the Shaded Woods. Vengal, that we meet in a second, tells us a little bit about it, but he doesn't say exactly where the battle that he was in took place. We can only assume that it was in the Shaded Woods. This page, it does say that the Shaded Woods was most likely a part of one of Aldia's towns, or a town that Aldia had and Vendrick had founded. And I'll go into this a bit more in a second, but for now we have to talk to Vengal's head, which is this NPC right here.
Leave me be. I like it quiet. Leave me be. What business have you here, traveller? You may call me Vengal, if I deserve a name in this sorry state. 'Tis rare to flap these gums. This is pleasant. Long ago, I was hired to defend the kingdom. I remember a long, brutal fight, and then somebody killed me. Or so I thought. I came to and found myself like this. I don't know what explains it, but it's not so bad, really. Now I watch the days go by and gaze at the night sky, thinking of the finer things, far removed from war. I'd grown weary of battle, but did not realize it until now. I know not what brings you on this journey, nor will I deign to ask. You may bear a great burden, but don't we all? I prefer to stay my distance. But I want to warn you of something. My body. I see visions. My body, headless, raging without me. My body wielding my sword, a sword forged only to kill. My body will show no mercy. If you see the wretched thing, stay far away. I learn new things every day. Things never learned in battle. And thanks to you, I've recalled the joy of conversation. If I can help you, if you require something, do speak up.
So like I said before, Vengal states that he was in a battle, and we can assume that this battle took place within what is now known as the Shaded Woods, because, as we know, when the Giants first invaded, they went to Drangleic Castle to try and find Vendrick. But to get to Drangleic Castle, they would have had to go through the Shaded Woods, and they would have torn it apart, and in this battle, Vengal would have been beheaded. So whatever the Shaded Woods used to be, was the first place that the Giants destroyed when they landed.
I cannot lie. Sometimes I wonder what's become of the kingdom. I was a hired hand, yes, but we soldiers stared death in the eye together. And for His Highness, I am afraid. but perhaps it's for the best. We knew not what we fought for. I was born in Feroza, a land in the distant east. When I was born, we were already mired in prolonged conflict with our neighbours. Eventually, our kingdom fell, and our people scattered. I've been a sellsword ever since. All I ever knew was war, and I can imagine no other way to live. What a fool I was. I am grateful for these peaceful days. But such contentment lies only in the here and now. Why must life be so confounding? Thank you for lending an ear to my ramblings. Here, take these. I've no use for them. Go along and resume your journey. I cannot lie, sometimes, and for it, but farewell. I will retire to my silence.
Okay, so we talked about Feroza and Mirror a bit before, and how they may have been the two cities that were in dire conflict with each other. And here I do go for that item, because I wanted to show you what happens if you do try to pick up items in this forest. You get backstabbed by the ghosts that live here. And these ghosts make even more sense when you think about this place being the first place that the giants destroyed when they landed on the northern shores of Drain Lake. There are ghosts all within this forest, and those are most likely the ghosts of the warriors that fought the giants when they first laid siege to Drain Lake. Anyway, Vengal states that he is from a land known as Feroza, and as soon as he was born, the land was already in conflict. And we can assume from other NPCs' dialogue within the game so far that the other land that Feroza was in conflict with was Mirror, because when you talk to the Mirrorese, or the people that were from Mirror that have come to Drain Lake now, they will clearly state that their land of Mirror was also in a state of conflict with another, but they never state clearly which land that was. Vengal's dialogue clears it up a little, but he also doesn't state which land Feroza was in conflict with. Now, this could just be a coincidence, and both Feroza and Mirror could have been in conflict with two totally different lands. But I doubt that is the case. They wouldn't go to all that trouble of referencing the conflict between two different lands, and referencing Feroza and Mirror of being in that same conflict if the two weren't connected to each other. I'll quickly just finish up the lore surrounding the Shaded Woods so we can move on with the enemies that are in this area. So, the Shaded Woods is thought to be a remnant of one of Aldia's civilizations, or a settlement that Aldia erected in his time. The place that we're in right now with this bonfire is called the Shaded Ruins. This place is directly referenced as being a ruin. And whilst a ruin could also be a place that has just eroded over time, it's most likely that this ruin was actually the place of a gigantic battle. The Shaded Ruins may have been the first place that the giants attacked when they landed, but that's not confirmed, and neither is it referenced anywhere. They just state that the giants landed on the northern shores, and they went to find Vendrick and Drain Lake Castle. So take what you will from that, but it does serve as a good explanation for the Shaded Ruins, and the Shaded Woods at large. And so this battle is when Vengal's lore comes into place. He states directly that he himself was a hired hand by the king. The king hired him as a mercenary, and he was killed in battle. And it only makes sense for him to have died in the Shaded Woods, because that is where we find his decapitated head. Mainly because it wouldn't make sense for his head to be anywhere else if this was where the battle took place, and clearly a battle did take place here because the whole location is now in ruins and it's destroyed. In the original Dark Souls 2, Vengal's body was found after you killed the Duke's Dear Freya boss in Brightstone Cove. And while his body could have wandered there from the Shaded Woods, it didn't make sense for it to be there. In Scholar of the First Sin here, his body is in the Shaded Woods, which makes infinitely more sense since his head is just below the area where his body resides. And I can't get to it in this character because I only had time to get one Fragrant Branch of Yore, because if I would have gone and found more, it would have taken so much longer for this episode to get uploaded, and I didn't want that. So I used the earliest fragrant branch that I could get to open the path to the Shaded Woods. And to see Vengal's body in the Shaded Woods, you need to have another fragrant branch, which I don't have, unfortunately. So I'll have to get the footage of him some other time and go back to it later. That seems better to me than just intercutting a piece of footage that isn't my own right here to show him, or just an image of him, because later on I can go back to him and talk about it. Unfortunately, I'll have to do that on this character when I find another fragrant branch of Yor, which means that I have to play through on this character a bit longer to get another branch, but I'll do that in my own time, and I won't record that. After we get to the campsite at Brightstone Cove, I'll swap back over, and we'll continue on to Brightstone Cove Seldora and the Duke's Dear Freya. And here we see a new enemy. These enemies are called Lion Clan Warriors. A line of lore on this wiki about the Lion Warriors goes to state that Lion Clan Warriors are a species of anthropomorphic lions whose sudden appearance on the stage of history suggests that they are not of natural origin. They despise other races and will arbitrarily slaughter those not of their clan. And here we see a yellow Lion Mage Warrior. This is the only one that there is, and I'm guessing that he was a captain of the Lion Clan or something like that, because not only does he look different to these green ones, but he is also much stronger. One of my guesses is that the Lion Clan members are from the land of Ferosa as well, because Ferosa has a lot to do with lion imagery and like lion warriors, and the armor of Ferosa is actually based off that of a lion as well. The Ferosan armor that we get in Drangleic Castle, I mean. It's not confirmed that the Lion Mages and Lion Clan Warriors are from Ferosa, but it's definitely a possibility. You have to remember that Alayam Lois is not the only place in Ferosa, and it could be a very vast and very big location in the game, but all we see of it is Alayam Lois. These Lion Clan Warriors could in fact be from Ferosa, but just not from Alayam Lois, which was a place that was a lot more civilized. In fact, the lion imagery of Alayam Lois and Ferosa at large could have been inspired by these Lion Clan Warriors. And I don't know what this corpse here is for, like why they even kept this in the game, because it doesn't even have an item on it, and you now have to use a fragrant branch to get to it as well, whereas in the original Dark Souls 2 game, it was just a corpse that was there. I think it's just a practical joke by the developers, but I don't think it's a very smart one, because it just doesn't make sense at all to me. And just quickly going back to how I don't have any more fragrant branches of Yor, that also means that I will not be able to get Ornifex right now. But when I get back to my other character file, Ornifex will already be released. I will have already done all this, so don't worry about Ornifex on this character file, because as soon as we get back to the encampment in Brightstone Cove, everything will already be done anyway. So yeah, unfortunately I can't get the footage of freeing Ornifex right now. Maybe I will in the future. In the next episode, maybe I'll do it before I go through with editing that, and I'll quickly do a run through on this character to get a few more fragrant branches and free both Ornifex and Vengal's body, so you guys can see that. And down here in this next area, in the giant sand pit, we're going to meet that new NPC that I referenced earlier, called Man Scorpion Tark. Now, it's thought to be believed that Man Scorpion Tark is either a creation of Seath the Scaleless from Dark Souls 1, or the Crazy Duke from Brightstone Cove Seldora. I don't know which one it is, but it is most likely Seath, because later on after we defeat Freya, I will go back and get dialogue from him, and he will reference that his master would seethe for all eternity, which is directly a reference, and a reference that is pretty on the nose if you ask me, to Seath the Scaleless from Dark Souls 1. For those that have played Dark Souls 1, some of you will remember the NPC named Iron Tarkus. Iron Tarkus was the NPC that you could summon to help fight the Iron Golem in Sen's Fortress in Dark Souls 1. And some people believe that, well, it's theorized, and most likely an improper theorization, that Man Scorpion Tark may be Iron Tarkus from Dark Souls 1, but Seath has experimented on him and turned him into this giant monstrosity. But unfortunately, this theory is pretty much impossible, seeing as Seath dies while Iron Tarkus is still quite human, so Seath could not have experimented on him at all. And here, you'll remember that I bought a ring a little while ago called the Ring of Whispers. You have to put this ring on to talk to Tark, and I'm gonna grab his dialogue right now.
Human, are we? This is no place for you. Be gone. Are you not afraid of me? Humans rarely come here. Those who do turn back when they see me, or make an attempt on my life. But you are different. We once had a master. He created us long, long ago. But he was born with a fatal flaw. He resented those who had what he lacked and became fully mired in hatred. Eventually, he drove himself mad.
And I accidentally skipped a line here. He states that it was at the peak of this madness that he conjured up we strange creatures.
Our master was a tragically lonely soul. Eventually, his solitude eroded his very reason. In the end, he never understood what it was that he truly lacked. Nobody knows when we were born, or where our master has gone. The only ones who even speak a human tongue are myself and my better half. I wish to ask a favor of you. I want you to kill my betrothed. Once, I always found her at my side. But as time went on, things went awry. She became violent, raging uncontrollably. Eventually, she came after me. And we have been locked in combat ever since. We seem to be at a standstill. The wounds we exchange are never lethal. I was born of my master's madness. Perhaps this is some curse. I will be sure to assist you in return. The past is a distant fog. My name was Targ. That is all that I remember. The past is my name.
Okay, so we'll get to talking about his dialogue in a second, but if you've noticed, I'm actually playing music in the background of this episode, and if you've been watching this whole series, you'll realize that that is a bit of a change since I haven't really been doing that, except for parts that I've been fast-forwarding through. Now, the reason I'm putting music in the background of this episode, and what awesome music it is thanks to Alex Rowe, since he's a terrific composer, is because, in my opinion, the Shaded Woods is one of the most dull areas in the game, and there is absolutely no background music in the entire area whatsoever. Granted, there are no backing tracks for most of the areas in this game. I'm just putting in background music because it just makes this area a little less stale and a bit more bearable to watch and listen to. When you're literally playing the game, it's different because this area is meant to feel lonely and decrepit, and it's meant to achieve a certain atmosphere. Whereas when you're watching it and listening to it, and you're trying to listen to me talking about the lore of the areas, and there's just wind blowing in the background of the scene and nothing else is going on really, it's kind of better just to listen to something in the background to go along with that dialogue. And I definitely think I'll start doing this more often when areas like this come around, because it's kind of just more relaxing to have the background music going while I'm talking, both for me and hopefully for you guys watching this, because I think it just achieves a better overall atmosphere for the video, rather than just the game alone. Okay, so let's get to talking about Man Scorpion Tark's dialogue. First things first, he says he has a master, or rather, he had a master. And who was this master? It was most likely Seath the Scaleless from Dark Souls 1. Tark then goes on to state that his master was also lacking something. And what was this something that Seath the Scaleless lacked? It was dragon hide, or dragon scales, or stone scales, that the everlasting dragons possessed. Seath betrayed those everlasting dragons with Gwyn because of the fact that he was jealous and he was not endowed with the same stone scales that his brethren were. Upon the defeat of the ancient dragons and the everlasting dragons, Gwyn gave part of a lord's soul to Seath and then granted him the Duke's Archives atop one of the mountains in Anor Londo. The Duke's Archives were much like Aldir's Keep, Seath would experiment on many things and go on to create many monstrosities, just like Aldia would in Dark Souls 2. And apparently the two monstrous experiments of Seath that have survived since then were Man-Scorpion Tark and Scorpioness Najka, or Naka. I'm not quite sure if the J is silent. And also, here is where we would have met Creighton again. So I'm going to quickly read off what his dialogue would have been if he would have been here, and then we'll get back to talking about what else Man-Scorpion Tark said. When you meet Creighton in the Shaded Woods atop these ramparts, he says, "Oh, I remember you. Don't you scare me like that, I thought you were him. That bastard with the ring lives in Brightstone Cove down the way. I'm gonna find him and settle the score. Nobody insults me like that. For the good of the world, and for my honor, I won't let that bastard live another day." And of course, he's talking about Pate. Down in this acid-filled area, we also meet this new NPC called Dark Diver Grandal, and we're just gonna have a quick chat with him.
Ah, look how far this undead has wandered. And a very fit undead you are. A bit too alive, but with a darkish shadow. Yet still unprepared for a deeper dark. And like every undead, you have no future. Oh my, don't mind me. I'm just talking amongst myself. But if you find a need for a truer dark, then meet again. We shall. The dark is still nascent within you. May the dark shine your way.
Dark Diver Grandal talks to us about the dark and how we are still not fulfilled enough to be one with it and to join the covenant that he is at the head of. Once you meet him 3 times in 3 different locations, he will allow you to join the Covenant of the Abyss. And this covenant will allow you to access the most secret boss in the game, which is the Dark Lurker. And I will be fighting this boss, but at the rate I'm going, I probably won't get there until like episode 30. So I'll have to pick up the pace a little bit. And unfortunately, I don't have any time off from university or studying for about another 4 weeks or so, and that means episodes will still be coming out quite irregularly / slow, whereas during my time off from studying, I'll most likely be able to get 1 to 2 episodes out every 2 days. So 1 episode a day possibly, if not 1 episode every 2 days. Because like I've said before in a previous episode, I do these episodes on the weekend during the time that I study, because that's pretty much the only time that I have off. But even on the weekends, I'm still doing assignments and stuff during this time, so it's still hard for me even to get 1 episode a week out. And I know that irregularity of uploading isn't helping my viewership at all, but it's the best that I can do right now at this point in time. But that should change in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Anyway, let's get back to what Man-Scorpion Tark said in the rest of his dialogue. So, when he's still talking about Seath, he says that Seath became so mired in his hatred that he went mad, and therefore he pretty much fulfilled the role of crazy scientist. Up until Seath was vanquished by the player in Dark Souls 1, Seath would continue in his madness to capture maidens in the land of Lordran and experiment on them, turning them into these weird octopus squid-like monsters in his archives. This went on for some time until he fully lost control of his mind. Seath then locked himself away in the Duke's archives and tried to kill anyone that would enter. And this includes the player character in Dark Souls 1, as you have to die to Seath on the first encounter to be thrown in the jail in the Duke's archives, and thus you plan your escape from there on out. Man-Scorpion Tark then speaks of his better half, also known as Scorpioness Najka, or Naka once again. I don't know which one it is. If you guys can tell me in the comments, that'll be great, because then it can stop driving me crazy. And also here in a second, when I try to jump, I legitimately brain farted and forgot that I had to be running when I needed to jump. So, yeah. But back to what Man-Scorpion Tark says about Najka. He says the wounds they exchange are never lethal, meaning that they can never kill each other. And while I don't know why this is, maybe it's because they're both experimentations created in the same way, therefore they can't be the end of each other. But in all honesty, I don't know the exact reason for why they can't kill one another. Although when you summon Tark and bring him into the boss fight, Najka can quite easily kill him. And it's a bit of a game oversight, I suppose, that Man-Scorpion Tark can literally die in the boss fight at Nazca's hand, even though he says that he can't die in that fight. But I think that's just down to game mechanics rather than world lore and his story as a character. And that's about all there is to Tark right now. After we defeat Freya and Nazca, we get more dialogue from him, but I have to go back there in my other character to get that dialogue, so we'll just have to wait until then. And I also just took a quick trip back to Majula there to improve my weapons and to try and get some new armor, but unfortunately I just spent it on leveling up anyway, because even though the armor that I have on right now is my starting class armor, I didn't feel a need to spend souls on more armor for this character when I'm just going to be swapping over to my other character anyway when we get to Brightstone Cove. I saw it as just a bit needless, and I'm going to get some new armor on my other character anyway, so I just wanted to get through this part of the game as fast as I could without wasting too much time. And the reason I was fighting that ghost back there with 2 different weapons was just to try and decide which weapon I wanted to use against Nazca, and to see if the Bastard Sword was doing more damage than my rapiers were at the moment. But it turns out my rapiers kill the enemies in 2 to 3 hits, whereas the Bastard Sword was about 5 to 6. So yeah, it was really a give and take for the Bastard Sword. I could have more of a reach, and I could have wider swings, but I would have less damage. For this boss fight, I'm also going to be summoning Man-Scorpion Tark, because I couldn't remember if you had to summon him to get the rest of his dialogue and the rewards he gives you for killing Freya and Nazca, but I just did this just in case I had to summon him, and it was mandatory to get the items that he gives you. I'm positive now that you don't have to summon him to get those items, but at the time of recording this I couldn't remember, and I was in game, so I just didn't feel like googling it. And either way, it's no big deal because I end up doing most of the damage anyway, and Nazca is a pushover. She's kind of like Quelaag from Dark Souls 1, you just stay to the side of her and she pretty much can't hit you unless she uses magic. On the other character file that I have, the one where I also played through the Shaded Woods, I did solo Nazca, but at that same time I couldn't remember if I did have to summon Tark, so this time around I made sure that I summoned him just in case, even though now I know that you don't need to. And this is what I'm talking about. You can stay to the side of her, but if she uses that magic, those soul rays, then you will eat shit, because they can attack you in any direction, especially if you're standing right next to her. At this point, Tark purely only serves as a distraction for Nazca, but it's easier to fight Nazca solo because summoning Tark means that she gets twice as much HP. So look at the damage I'm doing now, and then imagine that, but at twice the rate. That is how fast she would die. If I was doing this boss fight solo, the finishing time for this boss fight, and you can see the timer up there in the top right hand corner, that would be half of what it is at the end if this boss fight was solo. So say about 30 seconds. And that's because 1, she would have the standard amount of HP for a boss fight if you didn't have a summon with you, and 2, because she would always be focusing on you, therefore her hitboxes when she does that tail swipe move would always miss. So it means you could just keep attacking her from the side when she does that, and it wouldn't hit you like it did me before when she was aiming that tail swipe attack at Tark. Overall, if you're an experienced player for this game, you will have a much easier time defeating her by yourself rather than summoning someone like Tark. And here, we're about to arrive at probably one of the most useless areas in the game in my opinion, the Doors of Pharos. Areas like this in Dark Souls 2 are the reason that the characters in the game and the NPCs get so little development. It's because they spent so much development time on these little side areas rather than developing the good stuff that they already had. Other than for the Rat Covenant, the Doors of Pharos and the Grave of Saints are utterly useless areas that you don't even have to pay mind to if you're not trying to get to rank 30 in the Rat Covenant. And I don't know about you guys personally, but for me, I've never heard anyone say, oh, the Rat Covenant is my favorite covenant in the game. The dev team for Dark Souls 2 spent heaps of hours developing 2 separate areas for this covenant, and I don't know why, because it's not a popular covenant and I don't know why they thought it would be. I honestly can't see the thought behind developing 2 somewhat large areas for a single covenant in the game that almost nobody will join. it really boggles my mind that they put development time into these two areas where they could have put development time into other things that needed that development so much more. In my opinion, the thought process between these two areas, the Grave of Saints and the Doors of Pharos, is quantity over quality. And the general problem here for this game is too much content, too little time, and too little development on all these ideas. The Shaded Woods could have led straight to Brightstone Cove Seldora through that stony passageway that we went through a bit earlier to get to the Doors of Pharos. The Doors of Pharos and the Grave of Saints could have utterly been cut out of this game, and I for one would not have noticed. Also here, I was just looking at Scorpioness Nazca's soul. It just states what I was saying before when we were talking to Man Scorpion Tark. Man Scorpion Tark basically explained her entire backstory and lore. The text in this soul just goes to reiterate that. And another NPC that I've unfortunately missed in this character's playthrough is Gavlon. And up here in this room right here, Gavlon would be standing in the corner. But unfortunately, because I haven't talked to him, he is not there. And also here I was trying to show that you could hit these out of the air, but instead I get a face full of it instead, and it almost brutally murders me in one hit. And then stupidly enough, I go on to try to fist fight this Germ right here, because I was thinking how tough could it be to kill this Germ with my bare fists. And it turns out that he does about 20 times more damage than I do to him with my fists. So instead of fighting him with my fists, I just said fuck it and I killed him with the scimitar, because, I mean, look at that damage. I don't think I could survive fighting him. I mean, look at that, he just like busts into the rock with his fist. It's like, don't fuck with the Germs. Probably just broke his hand. Doesn't matter now though, because he's dead. And I also think his hand glitched into the rock right at the end. Oh well, fitting. So, like I said before, and you're probably noticing this area is, well, it's fucking boring. And honestly, there's nothing to do here except to fight a boss. But you have to go through an area where you can be summoned as a Grey Phantom. So when you're trying to get to the boss, you're constantly being summoned into other people's worlds, and either killing them or getting killed by them. And then you start again from the bonfire. So from the bonfire, you have to then run through the area again, either getting summoned or not getting summoned. And it just kind of repeats like that until you get to the boss. And even if you're about to go through the boss door, you can get summoned into someone else's world, and it's just really annoying. And then you've gone through all that effort just to get to this mediocre boss that is basically a copy of Sith from Dark Souls 1 without the amazing backstory and heartbreaking lore. I mean, even the name of the boss itself, the Royal Rat Authority, it's like they didn't even put much effort into that either. It's just like, yeah, just fuck it, give it any name. We go to market in like 1 week, just put it out. I mean, that could have been like a translation error by the translation company that does that, but I highly doubt it. If they actually wanted that name to be the boss's name, it's quite sad, because it's like they didn't even put in the time to give the boss a proper backstory itself. And if you don't have time to give the boss a backstory or something compelling towards the player, then you probably don't have time to be developing that boss. More content in a game does not automatically equal good content. It feels like they've really forgotten that in Dark Souls 2, especially with those last two areas. But anyway, as we see these hollowed Falconer warriors wandering around this camp, unfortunately I've got to say it's time to go for this episode. And sorry that most of these episodes come out so irregularly. I'm doing my best to fix my upload schedule, but it's just a bit difficult at the moment. So once again, thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you again next time.